Good afternoon. Welcome to Facebook Live. So I am here to show you how to make 4 cards using Peace on Earth. So that's what we're going to work on today. And there we go. Okay. So we're going to be using, like I said, Peace on Earth. And we're going to make 4 cards today, making from a kit. So sorry, I'm running late. I'm a little discombobulated, but that's okay. We're going to make this work. So I'm going to put this down here. Oops, maybe a little too close. There we go. All right, so we've got, all right, there we go. So Peace on Earth is the bundle that we're going to use today, and it comes with some gorgeous dies. We're going to use most of those in the 4 cards that I'm going to show this afternoon. So this kit, what I'm showing you, is called the 8 card kit by mail. And it includes the supplies for 8 cards, as the name suggests, plus, over $20, close to $25 of product. So from designer series paper, this one has also glimmer paper, there's ribbon, embellishments, so all sorts of things in these kits. And then of course the supplies. And so then I email you PDF tutorials, and I also do a video to show how to make the cards. So that's what we are going to work on today. So let's see here. For our first card, now all of these cards are all about strips. So we're going to be using a variety of sizes of strips. So all sorts of shapes. You can see some of my strips here in my container. I've got all sorts of widths and lengths and all sorts of things that we're going to use in our cards today. So we will start with, let's see here, I'm going to start with this card. So I'm going to pull these out. I'm going to make this one. Okay, so I have all these kits sitting next to me, so I'm just trying to pull the right ones. All right, so what we'll do, now I know that the name suggests that it could be a Christmas bundle, but it actually has a lot of different uses. So none of these cards that I'm doing today, I'm trying to think here, I just want to double check myself. Yeah, no, none of them are Christmas. So these are all going to be for a variety of occasions, but you don't need to use them for Christmas, because if you see the words, there's really only one that is kind of sort of Christmas, and that would be the Peace on Earth. But the rest of these, like heartfelt prayers, deepest sympathy, big hugs for, a good friend, can be used for all sorts of things. So we'll pull out the stamps that we need here for this first card. And I'll get those on a block. Now this one, Sending Love, I am going to line up here. And there we go. Block them both together. Okay, so I'm going to take my basic white card base, and I've got all these pieces here, so I'm just trying to get them all out of the way. Okay, so we're going to take our designer series paper, and I am going to adhere that down on my card front. So this becomes kind of my background layer. Now I'm seeing it's just a slight bit off here at the bottom, so I'm just gonna trim that. You can tell my scissors are getting harder to cut with. I think I need to clean them with, I usually use some lemon oil to clean off the adhesive. All right. And then we've got our center panel that's going to go here. But before we do that, we're going to stamp. So I'm just going to move these here. And I'm going to use Secret C. So on my card insert, I'm going to stamp Heartfelt Prayers. Now I know I am using a white card base, so I don't have to have an insert, but I've decided that I want one. So that is an intentional thing that I'm doing. And I'm going to stamp my stitched square as kind of a diamond, like this, so that we can make our design. Okay, so I'll just push those up here out of the way. And I'll go ahead and adhere my insert just so that it's not laying loose here on my desktop. So I'll put that here, and I kind of wanted that white on white look, so that is why I chose to do an insert. You could also just stamp your sentiment right onto the card base as well. But this is also great to know that you can do this. So if you mess up your stamping on the inside of a white card base, you can just add an insert. So I'm just gonna crease down my card base, and I'm gonna take my stitched square, and we will add that in the middle of my designer series paper. Okay. So then for this card, I decided to just go with two colors. So I've got the Secret C and I have the silver here for my strips. And these are really narrow strips, so I don't want to get tape on my desktop. So let me see here. You know what? We'll just use this. We're just going to use this to add our tape to. Okay. So that way I can just kind of check for gunkiness on the sides. And I'm just going to start from this top corner. Oops. And I'm going to come down here to the edge of my paper. Okay. So I'll just cut that right off. Now I'm going to be using this again on the other side, so I'm going to flip this over, and I am going to add more adhesive here. And from the opposite, from the bottom point, I am going to go the opposite direction. So from the top point to the edge, and from the bottom point to the edge. There we go. Alright, then I will take my silver one here, and I'll add my adhesive. I'm going to go ahead and just go all the way to the bottom because I know I'm going to need it for this whole design. So we'll start up here, and we'll go from the edge of the Secret C all the way to the edge of the designer series paper. So it just comes all the way over there. And it just gives this lovely fractured look, almost like you've cut all these random pieces of designer series paper, but we haven't. So then do the fourth edge, and I'll come all the way to the edge of my paper. All right, so here we have our top layer, and I think I got glitter in my eye, so I'm trying to blink my eye. Okay, I'll just set my little red scrap aside because I might have to use it again. But here you go. Oops. We've got our fractured card mat. And then I need my dimensionals. Let's see if I can pick them up off the desk. So the fun thing is with these cards, because we're just doing scraps, you are going to have so much paper to work with, because I've given you a half a pack of this peaceful glimmer. Oh no, that's the glimmer paper. I gave you half a pack of this glimmer paper and half a pack of this designer series paper. So if you consider the fact that we're only using, mostly just small strips, you're going to be able to make a ton of cards from all the supplies that come in your kit. Now, if you missed out on the kit, there is a link up above, and you can still get the kit. I've got some extras. So there we go. All right, and then I had this extra bow knot that I had done sitting around, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to use it right here on this card. So that's why it was in my bag of pieces, because I had tied it to use on a different card and then I never did, and I thought, well, it'll work on this card. So we're just going to add that here at the top of our fracture. And last but not least, I want to add my blue flowers. So you get a roll of this in your kit, and then you also get these flowers. So all right, so let me grab some flowers here. I think I'm just gonna do one of the dark ones here, kind of down there at the bottom, since I've already got the ribbon on there. Okay, so here's our first card. Now let me bring back my sample card, because you can see I've done a different piece of the designer series paper, because you've got half a pack, so I want to give you some ideas on what you might choose to use. And then I mix and match my glimmer paper based on what I thought would look good with each card. So that's our first design. Our next card we are going to do is this one. And let me get out the pieces here. So you'll find the doves are die cut in the kit for you. Okay. So we've got lots of scraps, lots of strips to work with here. We'll go ahead and put our insert, because I'm not going to be stamping on this one. So I'll just put that here on the inside. And then I'm just going to set this aside for a bit. Now I do need a new stamp, which is all the best in your new adventure. So we will take that here. What I'm going to do is I just have a whole bunch of strips. Let me set my dove aside here for a second. I've got a whole bunch of strips from the designer series paper. So fronts and backs. So I'm kind of split these out here. I don't know exactly what I'm going to use, but this is a starting point. So you can kind of see, got some repeats. No, I don't think I'll use that side. So this is what we are starting with. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I know I want my first one to be here somewhere-ish. So the nice thing about this card is that there are no exacts, because you're doing everything at an angle. So all you have to do is choose your first angle. So if I choose this to be my first angle, then I want to stamp underneath this. So I'm not going to tape it down, because if I mess up, I'm going to want to be able to flip my paper over. But I'm just going to leave the strip sitting there. And I'm going to take my stamp and I'm just going to stamp right underneath that strip, okay? So now what we can begin to do is add our strips. So I want this strip to go just past my words, just like that. And then I think I'll take this one, and I'm just gonna meet the ends right here, okay? So I'm gonna hold this for a second. My two pieces of designer series paper are not touching. There's just a slight space, but my corners are going to be even with each other. So that kind of helps me know where to place my paper. So we'll just put that on here. And then, let's see, I just want to kind of mix and match in terms of light and dark. Again, I'm meeting my, or matching my corners, making sure that they're lined up so that I have that little bit of space in between. We'll get some lighter pattern in here. There we go. This one, whoops. We're just working our way up to the top of the card. Okay. There we go. Now you can also cut these off as you go in case you want to repeat some of your patterns. You'll have them available to use. You can also save them for another card. So we're not going to waste all this stuff that's off the edge. It's just going to end up used later. Okay, we'll just make that one short. My crumb cake now, it's so stuck to the desk. There we go. Okay. Just a little bit of this one. We've almost filled it. I'm gonna try one little piece here. Let's try the end of this. See if we can get a little bit of that to stick on here. Okay. All right. So we'll carefully peel that off the desktop, and then we'll begin to trim these. Now you can also trim it on your trimmer, but because I have some extra, some extra tape on here, I don't want that to stick to my trimmer. So I am just going to use my scissors here and trim these pieces off. So just take each one here. Okay, just move these out of my way. And then now because that's stuck to my scissors, I don't want to rip my paper. All right, now I'm going to come down the side here. And we'll just get all of that excess cut off. So move all of this out of the way. And we have our front mat. So this will be the top layer for our card that came up just a little bit. So, but it looks like we got that little bit to stick right there. So that's gonna look cute. And so you can start it, you know, as high or as low as you want on this. You know, I kind of just randomly started up a little ways. There we go. We'll get that stuck right back down. And then I will take some dimensionals and we'll dimensionalize these layers. There we go. And we'll bring back our Misty Moonlight card base to put this onto. Oop, not upside down though. All right. So we'll add that right there. And I'll take a little flower here and I'll just add that. And then we'll take a smaller one down here and I'll just switch colors, add a different color up here. And then last but not least, we need our dove. So there's a couple of different doves in this die set. So I've included in your kit this one with the both of the wings kind of back. And just gonna dimensionalize that onto my card. Just like this. So kind of putting that on there. And we've got our white insert already. So I'll just crease that down. And here is our second card design. Okay, so next I'm gonna do one with just glimmer strips. So for this card, let's see, I need this pack. So I keep all my kits in these bags. I'm trying to have to always flip through them to find which one is which. Okay. So with this one, I thought we would just feature some glimmer paper. So I'm gonna need to pause for just a second. I'm gonna clean a couple of stamps off so I can get some blocks clear and we can reblock. Oh, that's not going back in there. There we go. Okay. So we're just going to add our stamps back on here. And then that way I can take peace, love, and joy. And I can do, let's see here. We'll need sympathy for the next card, and then big hugs needs to go on here. There we go. I think that's everything. Okay. So I'll just block the long stamp and the little one. And then big hugs. And I'll keep that one here. And we will do our tag. So with die cuts like this, you'll always find them included in your kit. But if you don't have the words, you know, the exact stamp that I'm using, you can always, you know, mix and match to a different stamp set that you own. But I do like to give you the die cuts so that you can use those. So, let's see here. I'm just looking through my stamp. It's not picking up. Let's see. We'll just kind of squish it a little bit. There we go. All right, and I'm gonna stamp this a little bit south of center. There we go. And then I'm also going to do peace, love, and joy. There we go. All right. So we we got that. So now we can take our glimmer strips and our Secret Sea cardstock, and we can begin to add some strips. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply adhesive to these. Now another way you can do this, if you don't want to put adhesive all over them, before you cut your paper, you could also add adhesive sheets to the back. And then once you cut your strips, you've essentially created stickers. And so that becomes a good way to do these as well. All right, let's see here. Of course, now that I turned them upside down, I don't know which one's which. So I'm just gonna start up here at the top. And I think I like about that much space left up here. Let's see, that was a Secret Sea. So I can use that. I'm just watching my corners, making sure that I don't end up short over here. We're gonna put this strip on there, and then I'm just gonna repeat the pattern one more time. There we go. That strip, and then one last one. I love this bright blue. So pretty. Okay, so I'm going to turn that over. Just press it down. And once again, we'll do some quick snips around the edge to cut off those extra hanging pieces. Now these strips I've cut pretty close in size, so there's not going to be as much hanging off the edge. But it just depends on what size scraps you have laying around when you're making a card like this. Okay. So then I like to use one of the pieces that still has some sticky, and I just pick up all those small pieces, and that cleans it up. And then I've got, see, that's gonna, there we go. And then I've got my front piece, which we can now adhere to the Misty Moonlight. So just some really fun sparkle on this card. Okay, close those scissors. So we're gonna add our insert. And we'll crease that down. And then I can add my layers. Add that here. And then we're going to take our tag. Now this, we're going to kind of do a two-part adhesive to this. So first, I'm going to put some dimensionals here. And I'm gonna uncover them like usual. But one thing I have found with glimmer paper is it does not always receive adhesive like dimensionals very well. So what I like to do is just dab on a little bit of green glue to the dimensionals. Because now, whichever dimensionals are going to be stuck to that glimmer paper, they're going to stay stuck. Okay? So I'm just going to add that here. Hold that for just a second. I'm going to be using the, let's see, what is this called here? Misty Moonlight Silver Edged Ribbon. So I'm going to take this ribbon and we're going to tie a bow then our glue dots. Put a couple of those on here. And that's why I stamped a little south of center, because I knew I was going to put a bow on the final product. So here we have our third design for today. So there we go. All right, so let me just set that here. In our last card, you've got another die cut in there. This is the other dove. And this is the card we're going to be making here with deepest sympathy. And then peace, love, and joy. Okay. All right, so we will start with our frame. Now, your frame is a little bit big. I apologize. I was making the kits, and they, I accidentally cut them to 4 by 5 1/4. So it needs to be cut down to 3 3/4 by 5. So I'm going to take off an 1/8 inch on each side, because I already centered this. So we're just going to cut an 1/8 inch off each side. And then I'm going to cut it down here. So let's see here. There. And then we'll just cut that down to 5. Because we're going to be sticking this on a larger mat before we finish our card, so. Alright. So that was my mistake, and I didn't catch it until after I had already packaged all your kits. Okay, so we're going to need this for our strips. And put our dove over here. I'm going to grab my Secret C, and got some scrap paper here. So we are going to take with deepest sympathy, and I'm just gonna stamp that here. And then this one, I'm gonna take my peace, love, and joy, and I'm gonna get that inked up. I'm gonna cover up and joy. So we're just gonna stamp peace and love. This is called masking. So when we want to use a stamp in a way that it's not currently designed for, we're just gonna mask off the area that we don't want to stamp. So I'm gonna cover peace and love. And voila, we've made a long stamp into a short stamp. So all you're doing is you're covering the part that you don't want to stamp. So I didn't want and joy to stamp the first time, so I covered it with the Post-it note. And that kept it from stamping on my paper. And then we just flip-flop how we do it. So we'll add this to our card inside. There we go. And then I'm gonna take my, actually I'm gonna grab some snips that are not gunky. So I think it'll be a whole lot easier. Oh yes, much easier to fussy cut when your scissors aren't all gunky. But I've been cutting a lot of things that have adhesive, kind of like these strip cards, and so that other pair of scissors I was working with, they desperately need to be cleaned. I just haven't paused long enough to do it. So I'm just doing a quick fussy cut, nothing perfect, just a quick fussy cut around the words, because I just don't want to hide this card. the way that you're going to see it come out. And so I really wanted my sentiment piece to be as small as possible. So we're going to put that here. And then we are going to take this frame, and I'm turning it over because you can kind of tell which side is top and bottom. And I'm just going to put adhesive all the way around my frame. Okay. And I'm just going to add it all the way out to the edges just to make sure that we keep these strips we're about to add well adhered. Okay. So then I am just going to take these pieces here, and I'm just going to start laying them on. Again, this is the back side of this paper, and I'm just going to rip that off. And then let's see here, I think I'll do some glimmer. And we're gonna overlap these in just random ways. So you're gonna see all sorts of amounts. Oops, I'm gonna come over here so I don't waste too much of this paper. All sorts of amounts of the different papers. Let's see here. Let's do some blue glimmer paper. There we go. And then we'll do this one here. So it's gonna look messy on the back, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because the back is not the important part, the front is. Okay, and then let's see here. Okay, look at my strips here again. Let me turn it over in the front. I think I need a lighter piece now. Yep. So we'll use this one here. There we go. And then I'll do this one. Oh, I'll just rip that off a little bit. And then I'm gonna add a little more silver, the kind of silver glimmer. There we go. You're just gonna keep going until you have covered the entire cutout. So, let's see here, we'll end with this one. Okay. So there we go. We've added all sorts of random strips, and oops, I just dropped it. Okay. So once we turn it over, you end up with this beautiful design, seeing a variety of the strips. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that, and well, first actually I'm going to put down the Misty Moonlight. So we'll put this on our front. And then what I'm going to do, now you can use regular dimensionals here, but just for ease of time, where did I put it? I have them sitting here. I was going to use, well, we'll just grab this one. I'm going to use the foam adhesive strips. So you could absolutely put dimensionals on this and dimensionalize your tag, but I just found it easier to use my foam adhesive strips because these are essentially just really long dimensionals. So we're just going to pull one off of here, and I can lay it on my mat. Just testing to make sure I had my gunky scissors here, not my good ones. stick that here. And then we'll take one more and put it on this edge. Okay. These are also what you would use for shaker cards. But when I want to make sure, just in case I overlapped those in a way that maybe one of the strips didn't fully adhere to my frame, these long ones just give me extra security of making sure that those strips are not going to come undone on my card. But regular dimensionals will absolutely work. You might just want to use a few extra so that you make sure that your strips are nice and solid. Okay? All right, and I will crease this down. Now you got a couple of die cuts now that we're going to work with. We've got our branch, and we have our dove, and then we've got our sentiment. So I'm going to start with our branch, and I'm just going to kind of flick a little bit of glue on here. There we go. And I'm actually going to leave that sit for just a second. Let it just barely start to dry. And while we do that, we'll put a couple of dimensionals here on our sentiment. And we'll put adhesive on the dove. There we go. Okay. All right. So I've got my sympathy words here. And then I'm going to pick up this leaf carefully and I'm going to put it alongside the frame. Just set it down really carefully so that glue doesn't come oozing out from behind my leaf. And then we've got the dove. You'd have kind of carrying that. And last but not least, we're going to add some of the flowers. There we go. And we'll do one of these over here. And so here we've got our fourth card. So I'll bring back in my sample because you'll be able to see, because I just randomly did these upside down. So I just kind of mix and match the strips that I had available to me. So I can see I did get two of the same right there, but that's okay. I think it looks okay that way. And you can see just the different ways that you see a lot of the strip or a little bit of the strip or the angle of the strip. Just a fun way to use some strips on a card. And you could cut out any shape you wanted. This could have been a butterfly that I die cut. You know, it could have been any shape that works, and you can put your strips across it. So let me just do a quick review of the 8 cards that you get in your kit. We've got these, and we've got this one. So that is the October 8 card kit. If you missed out on getting it, I do still have a couple of extras. So feel free to grab the link in the video and you can get your card kit. But until next time, keep crafting. Have a lot of fun.